What's happening, guys? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Lincoln Aviator. Now this thing behind me, it is powered by a 3-liter twin-turbo engine. It's going to push out 400 horsepower and 415 foot-pounds of torque. On top of that, if you get it with factory towing, it's going to be able to pull up to 6,700 pounds. Now, a couple things about the history of this vehicle. It was last produced in 2005, and then it got mothballed by Lincoln. However, they brought it back for the 2020 year, and it looks beautiful. Couple things about the styling of the body. What they've done is they've taken the look in the inside of the Lincoln Navigator, they've shrunk it down and put it inside of the Aviator. So I'm really excited. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And guys, again, thank you so much for all of the love you've been giving me in this channel. Subscribing is really helping to make the channel grow. If you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, make sure that you like the video and feel free to drop any questions you might have down below. And if you want to get involved in certain conversations, if you have an idea on a future video, something that you want to see, let me know. But let's get right into it and figure out what this vehicle's got to offer. Okay, starting off, looking under the hood of this thing. So as I mentioned, it is powered by a 3-liter twin-turbo engine, but this thing looks absolutely beautiful. All right, guys, now here's the kicker. That 400 horsepower, 415 pounds of torque, that spec rating is based off of using a premium fuel inside of this vehicle. However, having said that, minimum manufacturer's recommendation is to use 87 octane. But if you want to take advantage of the true performance of this vehicle, I do recommend the minimum 89, ideally using that 91, so that higher premium fuel instead. Now, in order to be able to fill up the gas tank, very straightforward. Just along our driver's side, as you can see, we've got a little cutout. What we're gonna do, press that cutout in, opens up. All we're gonna do, take the gas hose, it's a capless system insert, you're set to go. Once you're done, close, snap it in order to lock it back into place. Okay, taking a peek at the key fob. So, a couple things to point out. At the very top, we've got our unlock button, our lock button, remote start, our trunk release, as well as our horn or our panic alarm button. Now, if for whatever reason you need emergency access to the vehicle, what we're gonna do is press this little button at the bottom, crank it out. As you can see, we've got our emergency access key. Click it back into place. In order to remote start this thing, what we're gonna do is press the lock button once, and then the circle button twice. As you can see, we're remote started. To cancel out the remote start, we're just going to press the circle button once. All right, now a couple things to point out in the back side of the vehicle. So, trailer tow package, if it comes standard, it is going to be available. The trailer hitch itself is actually hiding just underneath this piece of plastic. Now, if you get the trailer tow option from the factory, you're going to be able to pull up to 6,700 pounds, which is huge. A couple things to point out. We do have our backup camera. It's going to be right here. We've got a reverse sensing system as well. So the Aviator also has the option for a 360-degree camera, which gives you a full 360 view of the vehicle. Okay, now opening up the trunk on this thing is a very straightforward process. So if we look on our key fob, we can press this button twice in order to open it up, but there's a few other ways that we can do that. Let's take a peek and find out how. So on the outside of the vehicle, just underneath the second L in Lincoln, so just under here, if we drop down, there's a button that we can press. So pressing that button is going to open it up. Now, having said that, we also do have a foot-activated liftgate. In order to use that feature, what we're going to do, key in the pocket. Let's say you've got a bag full of groceries, kid, whatever the case may be. All you're going to do, swipe your foot underneath and step back, and as you can see, it's power up, power down. You can use the foot activated for the up or the down. In order to close it, we can use our key fob, or we can press the button here in order to be able to close it instead. Let's have a peek inside. Okay, so dimensions of the vehicle are going to come up in just a second. I'm going to show you the dimensions two different ways. One with that third row seating up, and the second with third row seating down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to step out of the way for a second. The measurements are going to come up on screen, and then I'm going to lower these back seats so you can see what it's like from the very back of the vehicle into behind the second row. Here we go. Okay, now a couple things to point out. So in the back, this is going to be the standard tray that's going to come in the vehicle. There is the option for a thermoplastic rubber tray instead. So if you've got pets you're going to be transporting or you want to just keep the back nice and clean, you do have that option there. Now in order to remove the tray, very straightforward. We're just going to push down and lift this up in order to remove it. And underneath, as you can see, we've got some storage space, which is great. Now having said that, we can also remove this tray. So let's grab that, get it out of the way. And underneath, as you can see, so we've got our mini spare tire, we've got the jack underneath, and just on the back side, so let's zoom in a little bit. So looking down this way, there is the funnel here, so let's slide that out. We can just kind of make it out. Let me pull you up a little bit there. There we go, this guy here. So there is a white funnel underneath this guy, which is going to give you the ability to fill up the gas tank if you ever need to use a jerry can. So we would use that funnel in order to be able to do that. Folding in the back seats on this thing, it's a very, very straightforward process. So if we take a look at the very back, along our passenger side, there's 3 individual buttons. One is going to let you drop down the right side, one is going to let you drop down the left side, and the middle button is going to let you drop down both of them at the same time. And as it's really that simple, it's simply a button press. So to do both, all we're going to do is press and hold that button. Let me get out of your way for a second. Press and hold for a second, and the second it starts going down, you can let it go. And then very, very straightforward. In order to bring the seats back up, as I mentioned, we can bring them up individually, so the left side and the right side independently of another. So if you need a little bit of extra space to store some things, you've got the capability to do that. When it comes to third row spacing, so in the back seats, I'm 6 feet tall. Now with the seat all the way back as well as far as it'll go, I still have leg room back here. Now when it comes to up overhead, so as I mentioned, I'm 6 feet tall, I still have about, I'd say an inch, maybe an inch and a half of headspace. So if you've got taller kids, taller passengers for that third row, you can rest assured knowing that they've got the ability to have a ton of space in the back, which is really, really nice. Now, when it comes to second row spacing, now you've got a couple different options. Firstly, when it comes to the configuration. So what we're looking at here is the dual captain's chairs with a full console in the middle. So there is an option to go for the dual captain's chairs without the console, and then you've also got the ability to have a bench seat. So there are 3 different configuration options. It really depends on how many seats do you need. The Aviator is going to give you the ability to go up to 7 seats maximum. So you'll have your driver, passenger, your back 2 seats, and then either 2 or 3 seats in the middle. Again, as I mentioned, depending on the configuration. So, a couple things to point out about the back here. So as you can see, the front seat is set up for somebody that's a little bit taller than 6 feet. So I've got it set up as if the person's 6'5". And as you can see here, I still have some knee room. And up overhead, I've got about an 1.5 inches, 2 inches of headspace. Now, one other thing to point out is that these seats on the middle row are also adjustable. So you can move them forwards or backwards, especially if you need to give people in that back row a little bit more space. Okay, now a few things to point out. So as I mentioned, this has the full rear console in the middle. So a few things to note is that you've got a little bit of storage space in the middle, some places for cell phones. Now one other thing, the people that are in the back, so the middle seat here, they've also got the ability to control the sunshade up above. There are a couple cup holders as well. Now, a few things. We also have a productivity screen in the back of the driver in the passenger console. Now, in the back in the productivity screen, we've got the ability to adjust a few things. The big ones are going to be the audio, so we can control the audio settings in the back. We've also got the ability to control the air conditioning in the back as well. Whether it blows to our face or to our feet, again, matter of personal preference. As we move down this back console, we've also got our USB ports, so our traditional USB and our USB-C. And then moving over a little bit, we've also got a built-in inverter. So you've got the capabilities to plug a traditional wall outlet into the back of the Aviator, which is a really, really awesome feature. Okay, along our passenger side door, so on the driver's side and the passenger side, so those rear doors, one thing to note is that we do have a sunshade, which is amazing, especially on those really, really bright days. All we're gonna do, there's a tab, we're just gonna lift that tab up, and then we're gonna lock it in. There are 2 clips at the top, and you've locked it into place. So very, very straightforward. And then same process to take it down. All we're gonna do is grab that tab at the top, we're gonna lift up and push back, drop it back down into place. Now, we have a ton of options when it comes to the driver's side door. So we're gonna start off just on the bottom on the side. So at the very top, we've got our unlock and our lock buttons. When we move down, so we've got another little button that's going to control the side view mirrors. So that's going to give you the ability to power fold them by yourself. Next one is going to be the window power switch. So it essentially kills off power to those rear windows so passengers can't play with them. And then from there, we've got a directional pad. So the directional pad is what's going to give us the ability to adjust the position of the side view mirrors. One thing to point out, the two switches underneath, whatever one is highlighted, that's going to be the side view mirror that you're adjusting. From there, we've got our traditional window up and down buttons. Now, one thing to point out about the Aviator is that it doesn't have a traditional door handle. So locking yourself inside can get a little confusing at first. But having said that, we've got our door release button just on the very side. So pressing that button is going to power unlock the door, and then you're out from there. Now, adjusting the driver and passenger seat in this thing, very, very unique. So it's like this in the Navigator as well, but you've got the ability to adjust the seats using these levers. So the very top one, this is going to adjust our headrest. So we can move the headrest forwards, backwards, up and down. Next one is going to be for our lumbar support, or for our lower back. So we've got an individual switch, and then we've got a secondary switch, which is going to bring the actual backrest back and forward. From there, we've also got the ability to move the seat forwards or backwards. We can move it down, or we can move the whole seat up. Next one is going to be for our individual legs. So we can move each individual leg depending, again, on your preferences. From there, once you've got your ideal position, the perfect position for your seat and your steering wheel and your side view mirrors, what you're going to do is press 1, 2, or 3, and that's going to lock and remember all of your settings. Last one to point out is going to be our multi-contour seat. So our massage chair seat, which is oh so nice in this thing. In order to turn that on, we can access it through the screen, or we can press this button to hotkey it, and it's going to show up on our Sync 3 screen in our infotainment system. Adjusting the steering wheel is also a very straightforward process. So just by our left knee, under that left turning stick, as you can see, we've got a directional pad. So we can move the steering wheel up and down, and it's telescopic, so we can go in and out. Same thing, it is a power adjustable steering wheel. So once you've got your position set up, the ideal position that you'd like, press and hold 1, 2, or 3 on your door there in order to be able to remember your personal preferences. Okay, now this is the screen we're typically going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. Now, if for whatever reason you're not on this screen, let's say you're on the settings screen, navigation, etc., if we press the little home icon on the top, that's going to bring us back to this home screen. There we go. Perfect. So we've got a summary of our current location. We've got the active radio station, and if our phone was connected, it would also show up. Now, a couple things. Let's dive right into the settings. So in our audio settings, we've got a couple different things. So we've got the ability to move between our sources. So AM, FM, Sirius, XM, Bluetooth. If our phone was connected with certain apps, things like LiveX Live and Spotify, they would also show up on our entertainment sources. Direct tune. So we can direct tune to a station by entering the station in and enter. That's going to tune to the station for us. We can use the little tuning knob on the bottom, or we've got the ability to use the voice activated button on our steering wheel. If you want to be able to save a preset, once you've tuned to the station you'd like to save, all you're going to do is press and hold, and that's going to save the preset. So it's really that simple. Jumping into our phone. So in order to add a phone into the vehicle, it's a very straightforward process. So as you can see, there's nothing that's currently connected. So what I'm going to do is walk you through that process. What you're going to do on your cell phone, make sure that your Bluetooth setting is turned on. Okay, so Bluetooth is turned on. Now we're going to hit add a phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, so, and then on the very bottom, as you can see, Lincoln Aviator is shown up. So we're just going to press that Lincoln Aviator.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Okay, we want to make sure that those pins match up. So 024003, that's correct. So we're going to hit yes and pair.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Okay, so it has connected the phone. Now, a couple things. Do we want to allow the contacts and favorites to sync? Absolutely. When the phone's connected, if we've made any changes to our contacts, we want that to sync up. So we're going to hit allow. Now, a couple things to point out. So first one, auto download contacts. So as our contacts are updated on the phone, we absolutely want the vehicle to update those for us. So we're going to make sure that's selected. And the next one is going to be the 911 assist. So 911 assist, if you're in an accident in the vehicle and it determines that you're in an accident, it's automatically going to dial 911 for you if your phone's connected, as long as we have this setting turned on. So absolutely, let's make sure it's turned on. Just go and hit finish. And as you can see, we've now got a summary of my phone. So my call list, contacts, my phone, messages, messages, things like that. So we've got a number of different things. Now, a couple things to point out. I've got a radio app installed on my phone, and that's the LiveX Live app. That's essentially a version of, it's a different type of radio app. It's like Spotify. But in order to be able to use the app now, all we have to do is click that, and we can use the app directly through the center console screen, which is great. The vehicle does support Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Apple CarPlay, you do have to physically be connected, whereas Android Auto, we can do it over Bluetooth. Jumping into our settings now, and let's look at our phone. So we've got a couple different things that we can do. In order to be able to remove devices, add more devices in, we're just going to go to Bluetooth devices, and we can either add in another phone or multiple devices, and we can also view my existing device. So we can either disconnect or completely remove it. So if we hit remove the phone, yes. So it takes a second and it's deleted it. Jumping back into phone, as you can see, the phone is now gone. So it's really that straightforward of a process. Jumping into our navigation next. So a couple things to point out. Very, very straightforward when it comes to searching for an address. Press the search button at the top and start typing in the address. Now here's the thing. You don't need to type the whole thing in one go. We can go nice and slow, starting off typing the address and then giving it a second. Because what's going to happen is it's automatically going to complete the address for us. Pressing that in, as you can see, it's going to now. There we go, perfect. So it's recognized the location, and now we can either save it as a favorite by pressing the star, or we can hit start to begin the navigation.
Obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving.
Perfect.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
Okay, so very, very straightforward. In order to be able to cancel the route out, what we're going to do is press the X button at the top, and yes, we want to cancel that route. So it takes a second there. Now we can bring our controls back up and jump into our menu. Menu is going to give us a number of different options. We can tweak the settings. We can look at history, so previously visited addresses, if we've saved addresses as a favorite. Jumping into our navigation settings. So at the very top are map preferences. Big one is going to be the point of interest icons. So the point of interest icons are things like gas stations and coffee shops. Do you want that showing up? The breadcrumbs are interesting. So breadcrumbs essentially keeps track of where you're traveling, and it shows it to you in the map. So really, really neat setting there. Route preferences gives us the ability to go between our fastest, shortest, or the most eco-friendly route. We can also avoid toll roads, freeways, things like that. So if you have a preference to not drive on toll roads, you've got the ability to select that. When it creates the map for you, it's going to take your preferences into account. Next up is going to be our navigation preferences. So navigation preferences are going to be our guidance prompts. So as we're coming up to a turn, turning in 200 meters. So that type of thing. So that's going to be the voice and a tone, or you can just get the voice or simply a tone when you come up to an upcoming turn. Really a matter of personal preference. Those are going to be our basic navigation settings. The other ones to point out, we can set up our home or work address. So if you have a tendency to go to the same address multiple times, you can either set it as a favorite, or you can set it as your home or work address. One of the benefits of setting that address is that if you press the voice button on the steering wheel, you've got the ability to say navigate home, navigate to work, etc., and it's automatically going to set up the route for you based off of the saved address. That's going to be the basics of the navigation. Next up are going to be our apps. So as I mentioned, there are certain apps that will play in that center console screen. LiveX Live, Spotify are going to be one of them. When it comes to navigation, you've got the ability to use the Waze app directly through the center console screen as well. Jumping into our settings now, we've got a ton of different options. Firstly are going to be our sound settings, so the ability to tweak the treble, mid-range, bass, and a few other things. So if you want to hear what it sounds like, you can play the Revel experience, which essentially is going to turn the speakers up. It sounds incredible. Bluetooth. We can either turn the system Bluetooth off completely, or we can add a Bluetooth-enabled device. Radio, couple different things. The text is going to be the summary text of what station's currently playing and what song is playing. If you don't want that showing up, just make sure you set that off. Next one are going to be our preset pages. So we can go up to 5 pages, and if we go to our audio settings, it takes a second to update. There we go. So as you can see, now we've got 5 individual pages, so up to 30 different presets that we can save, and that can be a mixture of Sirius XM, AM, FM, etc. Moving into some basic vehicle settings now. So we've got the ability to set how long does the vehicle idle for. Easy entry exit is a really, really great setting. So it essentially lifts the steering wheel up and then moves the seat back a little bit as we go. So I do recommend keeping that one turned on. And the reason why is because it allows you to get into and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. The My Key setup is a really neat one. It gives you the ability to program certain limitations into the key fob, an individual key fob. Where that comes into play is, let's say if you're giving the vehicle out to someone to drive, you want to make sure that they're not going past a certain speed, you can create a speed limitation on a key fob. So it's great if you're lending your vehicle out to kids, or if you want to play a prank on your partner, you go create My Key in order to be able to do that. Onboard serial number, very straightforward. Our alarm system. So do we want the alarm to come on, ask on exit, and then the sensors are going to be all sensors on the outside and the inside of the vehicle, or just our outside perimeter sensors. Now, one of the cool things about having it on all sensors is that, let's say if your windows are rolled down and the vehicle's locked, if somebody reaches in, it's going to sound the alarm. So it's a really cool setting to have the all sensors on. Remote start setup. So remote start, do we want to have that system active? Yes or no? If we've got the remote start off, we won't be able to remote start the vehicle. But looking in here, so we've got the ability to adjust the climate control when we remote start. So it's either going to go to auto, which lets the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature is going to be, or we can go based off of the last settings. So the last time the vehicle was turned on, what were the settings like? Our seats and wheels, so when we remote start, if the heated steering wheel is on, would that work? And same thing with the seats, if we had our heated or cooled seats running, what would happen there? Lastly is our duration, so how long does the remote start last? Is it going to last for 5, 10, or 15 minutes? Next up are going to be our windows, so remote open. Remote open's really cool, as well as the remote close. Let's hop outside the vehicle so you can see how that system works. Now, in order to use the key fob to remote unlock the windows, what we're going to do is press the unlock button twice. On the second press, we're going to hold. So 1 and hold. There we go, it's really that simple. In order to roll the windows back up, so if we press the lock button twice, on the second press, same thing, we're going to hold in. So 1 and 2 and hold. And that's the remote window up and down functionality. Okay, next up are going to be our wipers. So a couple things, we've got our courtesy wipe. So the courtesy wipe, one thing to point out with that courtesy wipe is that I do recommend keeping it turned off. And the reason why is because with the courtesy wipe, when the vehicle's turned on, it's going to wipe once. You want to turn that off, especially in the winter time, because if there's ice buildup on the front of the vehicle, on the windshield I should say, it could potentially damage the motor. Rain sensing wipers is automatically going to adjust the speed of the wipers depending on how much rain is hitting the windshield. And the last one is the reverse wiper. So we can turn the reverse wiper off by pressing that button. Next up is going to be our power liftgate. So the liftgate switch on the outside of the vehicle, we can either make sure we have it on or disable it completely. When it comes to lighting, so different lighting options, we've got our auto high beam setting, which is essentially going to turn the high beams on automatically, and it's going to adjust them as necessary. So if there's an oncoming vehicle, it's automatically going to begin dimming the the high beams, I should say, before turning them off. The welcome lighting, unfortunately it's the daytime, so I can't show you that, but that's going to be the Lincoln logo that's going to show on the driver and passenger side doors. Our adaptive headlamps, again, very nice setting to keep on, as well as our auto headlamp delay. So when the vehicle's locked, how long did the headlamp stay on for? So 10 seconds, 20, or 120 seconds. Our lock settings. So locks, basically going to be the mislock. Let's see, come on, there we go. So the auto unlock, mislock, etc. So the auto unlock essentially is going to be when the vehicle senses the key fob close by, will it automatically unlock? Remote unlock, when that happens, do all doors get unlocked, or is it just going to be the driver's door? Again, matter of personal preference. Mirrors, we've got the ability for the auto fold, so when the vehicle's locked, it's automatically going to fold those side view mirrors in for us. Door keypad code, so there's a 5-digit factory number that we have that's going to be set up, and we can program individual numbers inside. The benefit of using that system is, let's say if you decide to, who knows, maybe you go out for a walk, you don't want to bring the key fob with you, you can lock the fob inside of the vehicle and enter a 5-digit number in order to be able to get back in. Really great process there. Basic vehicle settings. Next up are going to be our clock settings. So we've got the ability, so by default it's going to show our 12-hour time. We can switch it out to our 24-hour or the military time instead. We can increase or decrease an hour or in a minute at a time. Daylight savings time is automatically going to either spring us forward or fall us back an hour, depending on the time of year. And auto time zone update. If we're traveling to the East Coast, to the West Coast, whatever the case may be, it's automatically going to update the time depending on the GPS location of the vehicle. When it comes
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
That's where we would go in order to add in a phone. If the phone was already connected, we would see some additional settings in there. When it comes to driver assistance, we've got a ton of things that are going to show up. So as we go there, perfect. So we've got a few different types of cruise control. So our normal cruise control, and we've got the adaptive cruise. So the adaptive cruise is essentially a set it and forget it cruise control. So you set the speed at, let's say, 120 kilometers on the highway. If the car in front of you slows down, yours will automatically slow down as well. If they brake or get out of the way, yours will pick back up to your set speed automatically. Now, the intelligent cruise control works a little bit differently. So with the intelligent cruise control, it essentially has a tolerance that we can set. So where that tolerance comes into play is, let's say if you've got the adaptive cruise set at 60 kilometers an hour and we're on a road that can go 60 kilometers an hour maximum. If that road speed drops, so we've got a tolerance of 0 kilometers an hour. So if it drops to 50 kilometers an hour, it's automatically going to slow the vehicle down for you as well. So it's a really, really great system when it comes to the intelligent cruise. All right, next up, lane keeping system. We've got three different modes technically, but 2 different settings. So we've got the alert, which is going to give us a steering wheel shake. So the best way for me to describe that, imagine if you're driving over rumble pavement. That's the way that it feels. The aid is actually going to recenter you and pull you back into your lane, and then the alert and the aid are going to do both. So you'll go to a little bit of steering wheel shake, and it'll also pull you back into your lane, making sure that you're not veering over. Again, really a matter of personal preference, which one you go with. And the intensity is going to be the intensity of the steering wheel shake. So I do recommend playing with that setting to see which one you'd prefer. Next up, it's going to be our pre-collision assist. So pre-collision assist, if the vehicle senses a potential collision with active braking, it's automatically going to brake for you. If for whatever reason it can't brake in time, or if it recognizes a collision, it's going to take over with the evasive steering active. So the steering wheel of the vehicle is going to take over the steering wheel and pull you out of the way of a potential collision. Speed sign recognition, so activate speed warning. So as we come up to a speed, if we're starting to approach the speed, or if we go over, we will get a little ding letting us know that. And again, tolerance is how far of a tolerance can we go. So how much faster can we go than the posted speed limit before we get a message. Rear parking view, so a rear view camera. Do we want the enhanced park aid? The enhanced park aid, let's actually shift into reverse for a second. So the enhanced park aid, as we get closer to an obstacle, so it's essentially going to highlight, letting us know as we get closer to an obstacle on either side of the vehicle. Rear camera delay is how long does it take for the reverse camera to come on. So I do recommend keeping that one turned off so it comes on instantly. Blind spot system. So our blind spot system, essentially on the side view mirrors, we're going to get a little orange indicator light letting us know that somebody's entered our blind spot. Our trailer blind spot, if you've got factory towing, the blind spot system there with the trailer dimensions entered would extend the range of the blind spot coverage. So if you're pulling a trailer, a boat, whatever the case may be, if you've got your trailer dimensions set up, it's going to extend the blind spot. So those side view mirrors are going to highlight orange when somebody's entered the blind spot, not just of the vehicle, but also of the trailer. Our tow and haul settings, very straightforward, and as we're looking at towing things, we've got the ability to control that. Hill descent control, so the way that works is it essentially will keep you at a set speed, and you really only have to focus on the steering wheel. So it's automatically going to work the speed of the vehicle, setting you to about 5 kilometers an hour. It's really useful if you're going down very, very steep hills. Next up is our cross traffic alert. So if a vehicle's coming perpendicular to you, so either from the left or the right hand side, whether you see the vehicle or not, with cross traffic alert on, you'll get a warning message letting you know of a potential collision. Reverse brake assist. As we're backing up, if we don't see an obstacle, or even if we do and we don't brake in time, the vehicle's automatically going to brake for us. Driver alert is tied into the lane keeping system. So if we get too many alerts in a short period of time, it's going to come on and let us know that we should probably take a break. The auto start stop is going to kill power to the engine when we're stopped at a light for an extended period of time. If you don't like that setting, you can turn it off. Now, having said that, it doesn't turn off all the time. It's up to the vehicle when it turns on or when it turns off. The auto hold setting is a neat one. With the auto hold setting turned on, if you're driving and if you're stopped at a light, you can take your foot off the brake and it's going to hold the vehicle in place. Traction control, you can turn that one on or off. Again, really a matter of personal preference. Those are going to be our basic driver settings, I should say. Lincoln Way. So, vehicle is equipped with an onboard modem. So, with a data plan, you can use it as a wireless hotspot for up to 10 devices. So, it's great, especially if you've got kids that are complaining as you're driving, so you can connect them to Wi-Fi if the vehicle's enabled, and they can just run off of that to leave you guys alone as you go. Next up, we've got our general settings. So general settings, we can change the language, English, Spanish, or French, our temperature units, either Celsius or Fahrenheit. We can go kilometers and liters per 100 or miles per gallon. Touchscreen beep, so this beep that we're getting. So we can turn that beep off by pressing this touchscreen beep. And the other one I'm going to point out is going to be our master reset. So if for whatever reason, if Lincoln Way is giving you problems, or if the vehicle screen is giving you any issues, hit master reset and it's going to reset the vehicle to our factory defaults. Automatic system updates. I do recommend keeping the auto system updates turned on. And the reason why you want to do that is because it's automatically going to update the vehicle software and the firmware for you. With the exception, it's not going to update the navigation. You either have to get your Lincoln sales rep to do that, or not the sales rep, it's the Lincoln service rep, or you can download the maps and you can update it yourself. So other thing to point out is going to be, so we've got our 911 assist. I do recommend keeping that system turned on. Having said that, it only works when your phone is connected. Mobile apps, same idea. Your phone has to be connected to the vehicle either via Bluetooth or USB, and certain apps you can use through the center screen. The Android Auto, I should say, as well as the Apple CarPlay are some apps that'll work through that center cluster screen. Or console screen, I should say. Voice control settings, couple different options. We've got our advanced mode. I want you to listen to something for a second. Tune to 94.9.
Tuning to FM 94.9.
Okay, so we got a confirmation letting us know that it's changing radio stations. If we go to advanced mode and try that again, tune to 94.9. Okay, no warning. We got no message, but if we go to our audio, it has changed the station for us. So I do recommend keeping the advanced mode on because we won't get as many warnings. When it comes to our phone confirmation, do you want to call such and such person? Yes or no? And then our voice command list is this list that comes up when we press the voice button. So this is the command list. Whether or not that comes up, it's a matter of personal preference. Moving down, our Wi-Fi, we do need to be connected at home for Wi-Fi in order to be able to run our automatic updates, unless you're running Wi-Fi from a cellular device. Next up is going to be our display, so we can turn the display off completely. Button press in order to bring it back to life. We can have a calming screen instead, so it's going to get rid of all the noise as we drive. Takes a second there. Same thing, press that in order to bring it back to life. And jumping back into our settings. Into our display, we can change the background, the brightness, and the mode. So mode, it's automatically going to switch us between the daytime or the nighttime mode, depending on how bright it is outside. Looking at nighttime mode for a second, though. As you can see, so a beautiful, beautiful black setup there. And again, it's really a matter of personal preference. So do you like the nighttime mode, the daytime mode, or do you want the vehicle to change between the two modes? There we go. And let's, taking a second there. So let's move back out in a second. There we go. Okay, perfect. Next up is going to be our valet mode. So valet mode essentially is going to lock out the center screen. So if we're parking the vehicle, have a valet driver, I should say, parking the vehicle, we can lock the screen out by entering a 4-digit combination. Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4. Use something very, a little bit more challenging. But as you can see there, the screen is locked out. So we can't do anything until we re-enter that 4-digit number and it's unlocked the screen for us. So it's an amazing feature that we've got. I do recommend using it, especially if you're going to be using a valet driver. Lastly, we've got a couple other settings in the back side. So our ambient light is going to be the light that's inside of the vehicle. So along the cup holders there, along the side as well, you can select different color choices. Once you've got that color choice, just press the back button. Now, I did mention the multi-contour seat, so the massage chair seat. So we can either use the button there. So as you can see, we can adjust some individual settings, or we press the massage button to turn that massage chair seat on. And we've got a couple different options when it comes to the type of massage. And pressing the massage there is going to turn it off, and that's going to work the same for the driver and the passenger side. Whichever one is highlighted is going to be the one that you're adjusting. Press the X in order to cancel out of that, or you can press the button along the driver and passenger side door to bring up that seat control. Next up is going to be our navigation. So we've already gone through the navigation settings. And then our personal profiles. So personal profiles are great. It is tied up to the individual key fob. So we go through this in order to be able to set up the personal profile for an individual fob. And that's going to be the basics of our Sync 3 screen. Okay, next up, as we start to move down the console. So, a couple things to point out. We've got the ability to either close or open up our vents. Next up is going to be our park assist. So it can either navigate to parking, or we've got the active park assist. So it can help us either with parallel perpendicular parking or parallel park out. Let's jump outside the vehicle to see how that feature works. Okay, now using park assist is very straightforward. So what we're going to do, we're just going to hit this little P button, which is going to bring up a screen. We're going to hit the active park assist, which again, now we've got a couple of capabilities. We can either do parallel parking, perpendicular parking, or we've got parallel park out. So I don't have a place here to parallel park, but the process is going to work the same. We're going to do perpendicular parking. By default, the vehicle is going to look on the right-hand side. So by hitting the turn signal, we're going to go left, and it's going to look on the left-hand side. That's going to be the same whether we're doing parallel or perpendicular parking. And then all we're going to do is follow the messages on the screen. So we're going to start driving forward. Just make sure you watch the screen. Okay, there we go. And what we're going to do now, so we're going to shift into neutral. And it wants us to hold the P button. So this P button, we're just going to hold that. We're going to release the brake and press and hold the P button now. Now the spot that it's taking me to, definitely not a parking spot right now, but for all intents and purposes, it's at least going to give us the ability to see what it's like. Now, one thing to point out is that we've got a little countdown timer that's going here. So that's going to give us the ability... Oh, what's this guy doing? There we go. Perfect. So that little countdown essentially lets us know how long the vehicle's taking in between individual steps. There we go. And it's going to take just another second here. Oh, interesting. We introduced an obstacle and it responded beautifully to the obstacle. Very, very neat. I didn't think it was going to do that. And then as you can see, we are now done. So a couple things to point out. It had an oncoming obstacle and it still reacted. I love it. I absolutely love the fact that it did that. But that's the way that we use the park assist feature. So really, really simple. So as you can see, very straightforward. Next up is going to be our camera. So we've got a full 360-degree view. Or we've got the ability to select different views. So our front partial view or a front 180-degree view. Where that one comes into play is if you're pulling out of a spot that's a little bit tight, we've got the ability to select this in order to be able to see exactly what's going on. Press that button again in order to be able to get rid of that screen. As we move down, next one is going to be our driver assistance settings. So we can turn on specific settings. So our traction control, our auto hold, and our auto start stop, pressing that hotkey again in order to get rid of it. As we move down a tiny bit, so let's move this over, and a couple things to point out. So firstly, we've got our gear shifter now. So very, very different than what you might be used to. So rather than having a traditional gear shift anywhere or anything along the steering wheel, we've moved it up instead. So this essentially is something that's been borrowed from the look of the Navigator. We've got our park, reverse, neutral, and our drive settings. As we move down, we've got our volume rocker. So it's a beautiful, beautiful system that's in this thing. So it sounds absolutely incredible. Couple things to point out as well as we move. So actually, let's go side by side. Let's go one after the other. So we've got the ability to lock out the rear console now. So locking out the rear console means that the people in the back can't control the audio, and they also don't have the ability to control the settings for the climate in the back. So it's really, really useful if you've got kids in the back. There are people in the back that are fighting over the temperature. You can lock them out. When we press the source button, we can move between our Sirius XM, AM, FM, or if our phone was connected. We've got our four-way blinkers, the ability to either change radio stations, or if our phone was connected, we can change songs. And we can also use this tuning rocker in order to be able to change the stations. So we can either do it manually there, we can tune it here, or we can use the steering wheel. So a ton of options there. And let's move down a tiny little bit. So next thing to point out, we do have dual zone climate control in the vehicle. So it can be different temperature for the driver and passenger. Again, really just a matter of personal preference. This is a hotkey in order to turn on our heated steering wheel. Auto setting is automatically going to let the vehicle, I should say, determine what the cabin temperature should be. Chaos with the auto setting. All right, so that auto setting, as I mentioned, the vehicle will determine what it thinks the cabin temperature should be. Moving over, we've got the ability to adjust where it's going. So it's either going to the windshield, to our face, or to our feet, pressing that hotkey to make it go away. And we've got the air circulation button. So air circulation button is either with the button turned off, it's going to take air from outside and bring it in. With the air circulation button on, it's going to circulate air in the cabin. Up at the top, miss these buttons. So this is going to be our max windshield defroster, our rear window defroster, our air conditioning, or our max air conditioning. And then the last ones underneath, these are going to be either for our heated seats on the red or our cooled seats with the blue. Moving down a little bit now. So a couple things to point out. We've got a beautifully done console. So lifting a few things up. Let's lift the first shade up and lifting it in. So as you can see there, so we've got, let me lift you up and over and bring it down a tiny little bit. There we go. So we've got a couple USB ports. So we got our traditional USB and our USB-C. And moving this guy open. So a couple things. We do have a phone holder, which is really nice. I love the fact that Lincoln's thought about this one. And we've also got our traditional cup holders. Now, one thing to point out, we did turn on those light settings. So as you can see, we do have our ambient light. So that cup holder light that's just gone blue for us there. Other thing to point out as we move down a tiny little bit, we've got our parking brake. So pushing the parking brake down is going to turn it, or sorry, lifting it up, I should say, is going to turn the parking brake on. In order to turn the parking brake off, we're going to make sure the brake pedal is pressed and pushed down, and that's going to turn the parking brake off for us. Next up are going to be our driving modes. So by moving the switch, it's going to change between our different settings. So starting off, we've got our normal, slippery, our deep snow conditions, and then moving back the other way, we've got our conserve, our excite as well. So really neat settings. I do recommend playing around with them a little bit, because when you get into that deep snow conditions or the excite settings, guys, it feels really nice in comparison. Next up, let's take a peek at the steering wheel and this beautiful cluster screen. So let's actually move the steering wheel up a little bit. There we go. So now we've got a little bit of a better view of both of them combined. So first thing to point out is that one of the beautiful things about the setup is that some of the buttons are hidden. And the reason why is because it's based off of what's currently needed. So let's say if we wanted to turn on the cruise control, for instance, as you can see, we've now got a series of buttons that have highlighted. And we've pressed that button again to turn the system off. So it essentially hides the non-essential buttons for us. So I think it's very nice that Lincoln's done that. Now, in order to use the system, so let's actually turn on our cruise control for a second there. So we know that the cruise control settings turned on when we've got that set up there. So now we've got the buttons that are highlighted. So on the very bottom, so we actually use them by pressing the buttons in the back. So these things won't actually press in the front. We need to use the back pedals. So along let's start off on our left-hand side. So the resume, if for whatever reason the adaptive cruise control brings us to a stop that's longer than 3 seconds, or if we have to brake ourselves, by pressing the resume button, it's going to pick us back up to the speed that we were set at. Our plus or minus, when we get up to the cruising speed that we'd like, we're going to press the plus or minus, and that's going to set us at a specific speed. And then we can either increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time, just off to the left-hand side. As we move to the right, so as we can see, the very bottom one is going to be our distance indicator. That's going to indicate how close or how far we are away from the vehicle that's in front of us. This next one is going to be our lane centering system. So as we can see, we've got the bowling alley lanes that are up. We know that that means that the system's activated, I should say, or turned on, I should say. Now we know that it's activated because we have to go a certain speed. So you have to go above 62 kilometers an hour for this thing to activate. And we know it's activated because these are going to turn green instead. And then we can also cancel out the cruise that we've got, or we can press this button in order to turn it off completely. Off to our left-hand side, so we've got our volume rocker, so we can either increase or decrease the volume. We can switch songs as well by going to the left or to the right. Off to our right-hand side, so a couple things. These are essentially rocker pads, so we would go up and down with it. So these aren't buttons, so you can press them all you want. These aren't going to go. You have to move this rocker up or down. So as we move up, as you can see, we've got some navigation settings. So we don't need to go to our cluster or sync 3 screen, I should say. So we don't need to go there in order to be able to look at our navigation. So we can go to different addresses, point of interest, or our history, and then moving back in order to cancel that out. Moving off to the right side gives us the ability to, so if our phone was connected, we could make a phone call or accept. Moving off to the left is going to let us change between our audio sources. So our AM, FM, Sirius XM, or if our phone was connected, we could go that route as well, and press back. Next up, we've got some basic menu settings. So if we go to our basic settings, so we can go to our display setup. So display setup, if we press OK, so the OK, we have to drive the stick off to the right. And we've now got a series of different settings. So again, move off to the right, so our information screen, so we can select what shows up. Matter of personal preference, what shows up there. Our speedometer, it's going to show as, so our miles or kilometers. And as we saw there, so do we want the speed sign to adjust based off of that as well? Add the tachometer to the view, do we want to do that, yes or no? Our eco coach, do we want to have that coaching done as well? Border crossing, as we cross over into the States, do we want to have that showing up there as well? Next up, it's going to be our oil life reset. So as we get an oil change, all we would do is rotate off to the right in order to be able to reset that if you do it yourself, or move back. And back again, and that's going to bring us to our calming screen. So now as you can see, we added the tachometer, so we've got that in the left-hand side of the cluster screen, and off to the right. Now, a couple things to point out. By going up and down, that also gives us the ability, oh, actually, let's go back for a second. Perfect, there we go, so very straightforward. Now, if we press this button, that gives us the ability to now move between some different settings. So looking here, as you can see, we do now have the tachometer that's showing on the left-hand side, and we've got our speedometer on the right. We've also got our trip indicators. So if we press this button now, that's going to let us choose between the active screens that we've selected. So our fuel economy, our tire, ooh, that tire pressure is off. Our tire pressure, or our basic calming screen. Now, if we go to the trip one, if we want to reset to our factory default, so as we saw there, all we have to do is press and hold this button, and it's going to reset that for us and zero it out. So it's very, very straightforward. Now, as we move down, we've got our rocker knobs. So our turning signals and our other knobs. So a couple things, let's actually start off on our left-hand side. And before we do that, the one I will point out is our voice command button. So we would use this button in order to tune radio stations using our voice. We can make phone calls, and we can also navigate using this button as well. So off to our left stick on the very end of it. So we've got a little button there. So that button is going to let us turn our lane keeping system on or off. From there, we've also got our signals. We can flick in order to turn on the high beams, I should say. And then off to our right-hand side. So on the right-hand stick, as you can see, we've got our rear window wiper. So if you want to use the rear window wiper, we can go that route. Front windshield wipers, we can go up or down with it if you don't want to rely on the rain sensing. And then this is going to allow us to select how much stuff, essentially, how much windshield wiper fluid gets pushed out, I should say, when we turn the windshield wiper fluid on. For the front windshield wipers, we're going to pull in towards us. For our rear, we're going to push away. Last thing to point out are going to be our paddle shifters. Paddle shifters are going to let us determine what gear we're in. So we're going to either go up or down gear, again, depending on what you'd like there. And that's going to be the basics of the steering wheel and the instrument cluster. Okay, looking up overhead. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, we can program our garage door code in here. Very straightforward to do that. Look at the owner's manual to figure it out. Moving out to our right-hand side, so we've also got our sunglasses holder. Now, a few things to point out. We can turn on each light individually just by pressing, so that is unique to the Aviator. And that's going to be for our driver-passenger side. A couple other things, we've got the ability to turn all cabin lights on. And the next button, this one is going to be whether or not the lights come on when the doors are open. From there, these buttons are going to control the shade, so whether or not the shade in the sunroof is open or closed. So by pressing it away, so more towards the windshield, that's going to let us close it, or that's going to allow us to close it. So single button press closes it halfway. Pressing it again will close it at the rest, or we can press away in order to stop it part way. Press it again in order to be able to open it back up. Now to open that twin panel moonroof, what we're going to do is press these buttons. So pressing it away once is going to open it up. So opens it up the majority of the way. Pressing it one more time will open it up that last little bit. And same idea, single button press in order to close it up. All right, now time for the fun part. Let's have a little bit of fun in this thing and see how well this Aviator is gonna fly. Okay, so one thing to point out, there is a message on that center instrument cluster there. If we take a look, in order to get rid of it, if you ever have a message on that center screen, all we're gonna do is press the OK button. So OK, we're just gonna roll that rocker to the right, and that's going to get rid of any screen we might have on that center cluster. Drive, let's do this. By default, I just want to rest my hand there as if there's a gear shift or something else for me to hang on to. Coming from driving a manual transmission, so that kind of makes sense. There we go. Oh yeah. Woo. You know, it's powerful when. That is amazing. All right, so note to self, I'm going to have to tether this down a little bit more as we go. Oh, that's great. This thing is super comfortable. It feels really, really nice. I am really excited to take it onto the highways. I've got a really good feeling about it. And you know what I'm actually going to do as well? I think I'm gonna rock the massage chair seats, because why not? We're gonna do that in a sec, just as I stop here. Go, and let's do it. Massage chair seats. Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's really nice. All right. So one of the beautiful, beautiful things about having massage chair seats, it's going to massage your hamstrings, so the back of your thigh, and it also massages your lower back. So one of the beautiful things about that is that if you're doing distance driving, distance trips, you may not need to stop as often as you normally would, because it's going to massage the places that would normally be a little bit rough as you go. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, now a couple things to point out. I've got the auto hold setting turned on, and I've got the engine start stop. So the auto hold obviously is on right now because I came to a complete stop, and it gives me the ability to pull my foot up off the brake. Now, one of the benefits of that is if you're on a distance drive, you can, if you're stopped, you can pull your foot up in order to be able to give yourself a little bit of a break. You know, shake that foot out. Oh, that massage chair seat is so nice. I love that about Lincoln vehicles. I love the fact that you've got the ability to get it across the trim level, like across every vehicle. It's beautiful, beautiful. You can get it in the Navigator, in the Aviator, in the Nautilus, as well as in the Corsair, Continental, etc. So it's so nice. So nice. It's one of those things, like, it's a luxury item, and until you try it, it's hard to really understand and comprehend the benefits of it. Like I said, it's really meant more for those distance drives. So if we're doing a long distance drive, it gives us the ability to essentially drive in style, drive with some relaxation as well, which, how can you complain? Oh, it's nice. Okay, so a couple of things. I've got the adaptive cruise control system. I'm going to turn that system on. Actually, I'll wait until we're closer to the highway there. So I want to do adaptive cruise control. I just have it on the regular adaptive and not the intelligent. And the reason why is because there aren't too many spots where the speed limit is, the posted speed limit is going to drop, where it would make sense to be able to test that system. So the intelligent cruise really is meant for if you're going in or driving in a zone where it's going to go from 80 down to 50 to 60 back up, etc. So comfortable though. It's super comfortable. The seat, the massage chair seat feels really, really nice. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so comfortable. And then you've got the power to go when you need it. Like, love it. I've got got my lane keeping system turned on as well. So once we get to the highway, we'll be able to figure out exactly how that lane keeping system works in this thing and see how responsive it is. That's going to be the big test when we get into the highway, is how responsive is the adaptive cruise control, and then how responsive is that lane keeping system. Somebody was in my blind spot there. That's why I've highlighted orange, letting me know that somebody's entered that blind spot. So far, so good. Okay, auto hold system's engaged. Oh, and auto start stop. So that's kicked in as well. So it's killed power to the engine. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it, is that you can use both systems in tandem. So you can take your foot off the brake for a second, give your leg a little bit of a shakeout, and it'll kill power to the engine simultaneously. Really cool. Okay, as you can see, highlighting orange there, somebody's entered into my blind spot on the right side. So comfortable though. Oh, I love it. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's so nice. And it's so quiet in the cabin here as well. Like, I don't have the I don't have any music going right now, but if I did, like, you can bet your butt you'd be able to hear it, and it would be throughout the cabin as well. Oh, that's really, really nice though. Oh, that's nice. Okay, I'm excited to open it up, so I'm gonna have the cruise control on with the distance pulled back a little bit. Let's do it. Oh yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. All right, this thing's got some power. It's got some kick. Okay, lane keeping system's turned on. Speed is set right now, so I've got it set to 100, but I'm only traveling 93, and that's because the car in front of me is only going about 96. So as you can see, there we go, I'm slowing down a little bit more. I love the system, I love that. And guys, it's just set it and forget it, so you don't even have to worry. So I'm gonna start to veer over a little bit, and it's recentered me and pulled me back into my lane. Love it. Hey, we've got a bunch of people moving. I'm gonna stay in this lane, but I'm gonna shorten the distance, which will also speed me up. So got it at 100. I'm actually traveling 100. So cool, so cool. All right, the lane keeping system, it's recentered me. It's realized that I'm starting to veer over, and it automatically recenters. I love it, love it. So cool, so cool. And okay, so the system also works as you're going around a corner. So as you're turning, if you start to veer over into another lane, you get that steering wheel shake. Again, same thing. It feels like you're driving over rumble pavement, but then it'll also center you and pull you back into your lane. Again, if you're going the right speed. So you need to be going at least 62 kilometers an hour in order for that to work. It almost feels like a Back to the Future kind of scenario. Like, Marty, we've got to be going 88 kilometers an hour. Oh. It's so ridiculous. Oh, it's nice. It is a very, very comfortable ride, though. I will give it that. And this is one that doesn't even have the dynamic handling package, so that's the kicker as well. This one is the 201A package. So there is the option for the dynamics handling package, which gives you that air suspension system. So the air suspension system, it essentially takes it to the next level. But here's the caveat to that. You can only get that package if you look at the 202 option. And the downside to the 202 package is that you've got 22-inch tires, which 22-inch tires are going to be very, very rough on the road. So you will notice a difference with the dynamic handling package, but it's ideal to have 20-inch tires just because it won't be as rough of a ride in comparison. still it's super comfortable regardless, and like it's a very, very quiet cabin. I know you can't really tell because I've been talking this whole time, so I'm actually going to be quiet for a second for you. Alright, it's been a couple seconds. It's hard to be quiet by... No, it's not. It's not hard at all. Meditation, art of mindfulness, all that fun stuff. Oh, and I've still got that massage chair going as well, so it's super comfortable. Oh, that is beautiful. Fantastic. I love it. I love what Lincoln's done with these things, because what they're trying to do is capture a younger demographic, which absolutely makes sense. Like they're restyling the vehicles, they're going after that younger crowd. They've got Matthew McConaughey. All right, folks. It's nice though. Love it. They're reinventing themselves, and they continue to do so. And I'm really looking forward to the future of Lincoln and Ford vehicles. Now, Lincoln, looking at it, there are some hybrids available, but looking into electrification and seeing what's coming in these things, I am excited. Like, could you imagine getting a fully electric Lincoln Navigator or a fully electric Aviator? Because here's the kicker: you do have the ability to get this in a hybrid engine. Now, having said that, the hybrid engine is not a gas-saving engine in this specific vehicle. If we look at the hybrid engine really is there to give you more power, more than anything. Oh, it's so nice. So nice and responsive. This is great. A massage chair seat, like I absolutely love it. It's still going. It's giving me a great massage. Like how do you complain? Like that is, I love it. I absolutely love it. Upper, let's go lower rolling. Let's get some lower back work in right now. Auto holds kicked in. Auto start stops also kicked in, so this thing is running quiet. Now, having said that, the auto start stop system doesn't turn off all the time, so the engine doesn't stop all the time. It is occasional. The vehicle essentially decides when it wants to do it, and if you've got the AC blowing, if you've got a number of other things going, it won't necessarily turn off every time. So it does do it on a case-by-case basis, essentially when it decides it wants to do it. I love it. I've got people in the car next to me staring at my recorder. They're like, what is happening? What are these people doing? Love it. Oh, I love it. It's great. Always get turned looks. Always get turned heads as I go. Alright folks, well that is the full review, the full overview of the 2020 Lincoln Aviator, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them down below. If you have any feedback, please, same thing. If you have an idea for a future video or a vehicle or something that you want me to review in the future, make sure you drop it down below. I am very, very responsive at getting back to people. If you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like that, make sure you hit that like button, and please consider subscribing to the channel because it does help me grow. Until I see you next time, guys, stay safe.